How hard would it be to even port that thing into franchise? On today's episode of the Franchise Ain't Dead podcast, we are discussing MLB The Show and a couple of Diamond Dynasty features that I think would do pretty well in franchise mode. As you can see, I don't play this mode. I really don't touch Diamond Dynasty. I might touch Showdown here or there, but we're going to begin with number one, designated hitter as a legitimately selectable position. There are 3 different Shohei Ohtani cards, but there are several other players, including out of position players, which is a really silly gimmick, but obviously SDS has got to do something as far as content in the later portion of the year, or at least the mid portion of the year. Nonetheless, having DH as a position would help, particularly for players like Marcell Ozuna. Yes, his fielding says he can play out there, but there are guys like, we are currently in the American League Championship Series of the postseason, Giancarlo Stanton. Would you want him out there as your outfielder? Maybe if you're desperate? Yeah, no. Nobody's gonna really run him out there. Yes, he's been hitting like crazy, but he would be a liability in the outfield. And having the DH as a position that a player can play, particularly if you're playing through seasons and you have to simulate, sometimes them guys are just gonna play an outfield. There's really nothing you can do about it. Surprisingly enough, I don't think enough players end up with errors at all throughout the entire game, but it is what it is. That's probably more of a ratings thing. DH position would be really important to have because, listen, some guys need to play, and playing their quote-unquote normal position just isn't going to work out for your team, particularly defensively. Now, I would really only limit this to players that you know you're going to play there for the majority of the season, or you really do not want them out there at all at whatever their quote-unquote primary position is. A guy like Kyle Schwarber, sure, he can play outfield. Do you really want him out there? He might have a strong arm, but I wouldn't really put him out there too much. Great leadoff hitter, particularly as a power hitter. I think he strikes out way too damn much. You can, I guess, balance that out because of the fact he hits for power. Not my team, not my problem. Please excuse the fact that I don't play this mode at all, but you wouldn't be coming to a channel called State of the Franchise Gaming if you really gave that much of a damn about Diamond Dynasty. Don't get me wrong, I play it here and there. I just don't play it enough to really register any stats 99% of the time. Most years, I don't play it all at all. It ain't much in the way of stats, but I do like this screen in particular because it shows stats that the normal card when you are in franchise mode just won't show on a more normal basis. There are things like hitting against either hand, at bats with runners in scoring position. Like, you get a lot more detail than what you may see on the quote-unquote more normal card. And in the next tab over the advanced stats, which, I mean, they are what they are. I am not the biggest fan of analytics. I am probably going to put out a future episode on what I think about analytics and how they can or maybe cannot fit in this game. These stats would make sense. If you understand these would make more sense to have available to see, particularly in game. As you are playing franchise, you got to make decisions. Sure, you can just play the guys with the best overalls, the guys with the best pop, but ratings don't always play to how you think. And guys might be in a hot streak, in a cold streak. Things can take a turn, and you want to be able to have an idea of when you should sub guys out, when you should keep them in the lineup. I would love the ability to sort it in a way similar to places like Baseball Reference, where you can sort through statistics on a span basis. You can look at how well somebody's been hitting over 5 games, 10 games, 15 games. I'd love to see something like since injury, so that you have an idea of how well somebody is playing. That really makes more sense, not so much always over the course of the entire season, but in this short stint. Say you are in the last 2 weeks of the season and you are fighting for a wild card spot. You want to be able to have your best players who are hitting at the time. That makes sense to give yourself a run towards a wild card spot or the division if you happen to be that close to the division leader. And both those things blend into quite possibly the biggest thing I'd love to see from MLB The Show as far as features are concerned. That is inside edge. Just look at the statistics you can get here. You don't get any of these, if very many of these, and not in as much detail as you probably should. That is why I want this, because over the course of years, again, you are making managerial decisions. Now, this shit might be boring, or you may not care about this if you happen to be a content creator who does rebuilds. You're not thinking about this kind of stuff. This is really more so for the people that are playing, even if not every game, but one game a series, one game a week. You want to see how players are playing over the course of a season and how they fit in different situations. I understand a lot of baseball is more going towards caring about situational baseball so much as the analytics, but just look at this. You are able to take a look at how assuming I were in an actual game, I would think I'd be able to see what the head-to-head numbers against a particular pitcher is for Big G, how he hits against righties who happen to throw, I'm going to assume, primarily splitters, and that's why it's in the parentheses. There are other right-handed pitchers with, I guess, whatever average strikeout rates are. I believe it's somewhere around 5, if not 6 per 9. I know that may not play well to the way some of us gamers think of things. I have been a coach, so I don't have attributes to look at. I've got to look at numbers. Fly ball pitchers, how he does against middle relief pitchers. I'm assuming that are also right-handed, how he's done in the last 5 games against all pitchers. They have even versus, I'm going to assume there are different tiers of bullpens. I would think that would be something that the game would be able to rate in some respects over the course of a season. Bullpens can go from they've got a great pen to they're shaky, and you want to see that. You want to be able to know how players are playing. Honestly, it's almost kind of like 2K with the isolation versus different particular defenders, whether they are poor or average or good or even great. You get an idea of, hell, who you're facing on a nightly basis. You get an idea of, okay, I can stick this guy out there because, shit, I know he's going to cook this guy, or he's going to work a walk or something. Again, I would not base this off of overall. I'd base it off of how players are playing throughout the season at that particular time. And if you're looking at it over the course of a certain amount of games, obviously the numbers are going to fluctuate. I feel like I've asked for this every single year and we remain to never get it. I want this screen in multiple different places, but in particular, just some kind of player comparison screen. As you can see, Willie Mays, rest in peace to the GOAT, and they're comparing him to Torrey Hunter. Now, granted, this obviously 2 completely different center fielders in 2 completely different times. That's not the point of this. The point of this is you are able to actively see right in your face, say you need to make a substitution. You need to be able to see this information and not have to go up and down or back and forth as you might do in the substitution screen. You go to the left of the guy on the bench. All right, they got this versus contact against righties, this power, this vision. All right, go over to the player you might want to sub out. You look at that. It takes too damn long. There needs to be something this easy to look at, and it'll tell you, boom, from an attribute standpoint, just attributes, if you want to keep it simple, attribute standpoint of where these guys sit. Now, you can take that one level further by adding actual stats, and I mean stats, not attributes. Attributes make up the player. Stats are what you've done, how a guy fits. You can take a look at how players are playing in a particular situation, if it pertains in the clutch, run and scoring position. This screen also has the added bonus of being able to tell you how players are when it comes to secondary positioning. We have no idea how the penalty works in franchise. You can only see it in Diamond Dynasty, and it just doesn't make sense. How hard would it be to even port over that thing over into franchise? Is it really that difficult? The attributes for a lot of Diamond Dynasty cards, particularly the live series, they fluctuate all year. You want to be able to take a look at how your team is and what you need to do in Diamond Dynasty, because you're in a competitive mode. You can still be in a competitive mode in franchise, but you still want to be able to look at that kind of thing. To add on to that, I have asked for this feature, I think in a YouTube short, like 3 or 4 years in a row. By the way, Yohan Santana, me and him share a birthday. Damn it, I've probably doxed myself. Nonetheless, down in the bottom left-hand corner, squares to toggle attributes. We've always had that. We've had that since MLB The Show, like 06, to be that honest with you. You can see how a pitcher hits, see how they pitch. You get their fielding in there too. But it is R3, toggle pitch attributes. Why in the hell are we not able to use that in franchise? You hit R3, or if that's right stick for those of you on Xbox. I don't know why you want to be playing this game on Xbox. You can click over and see the pitch control for each pitch. These numbers you see in the middle here do not pertain to the same thing. It may say a pitcher has 83 control, but what pitch are they referring to? Are they referring to the slider, which matches up at 83? Are they is this an average of the 3 or the 5? Actually, this is a 5-pitch pitcher in Johan Santana. It's not clear. It's never clear. You'd have to figure this out yourself, which is actually something I did about 5 years ago. They still haven't really changed how they come up with some of this formula. Pitch and clutch, I don't know how they determine that. Beats me. But control, I believe, tends to be the average of the pitches that you throw. So add up everything, divide it by the numbers. Come on, you took math class, you know what I'm talking about. Pitch velocity more so has to do with which pitch do you throw the hardest in terms of the velocity attribute. Again, not miles per hour. That 4-seam fastball coming in at 94 pertains to the 83 miles an hour. It might not exactly be true. It could be the sinker. I've seen times where it'll say something crazy like a guy has 85 velocity, but it's not pertaining to his fastball. It could be his slider. It could be his circle change. They happen to throw a circle change. What I guess would be hard, as we've seen, if you look at Baseball Savant and some of the StatCast numbers, guys are throwing harder changeups. They're coming in at the low 90s. You might get the occasional 94 mile an hour changeup. I know it doesn't make sense, but I mean, if guys are being known to throw harder, obviously everything is going to go up because of it. And break, they're going to take whichever pitch breaks the most, not in terms of the actual pitch shape, but just in terms of the attribute. That circle change is at 99. If it were at 50, despite the fact the circle change breaks more so, depending on how you look at it, breaks more so than the 4-seam fastball. That is about the only pitch it might break more than, at least in terms of pitch shape. That all depends on how you're throwing it and all that good stuff, but nonetheless, cutter's got movement, the sinker's got movement, the slider's got movement, the circle change has got movement. All 4 of those pitches have movement. The 4-seam does have breaking down in the zone type direction, or sometimes you might see a fastball and it'll have what may be perceived as a rising action. You don't see it very often, but it can happen. And the attribute is, again, based off of just whichever one might be the highest. So a circle change is going to be sickeningly disgusting to deal with. He's got a sinker alongside that. You could probably get away with just throwing those 2 pitches, and it's going to throw your opponent off. In MLB The Show 18, we lost season mode. For some of y'all, this is not something that you give a damn about. If you are a franchise player, you're usually playing multiple seasons. A couple years later, they would add in March to October, which I can't think of too many people that are playing that mode. For what it's worth, it is basically Diamond Dynasty centered as you're playing it, and it's cheap. I don't know. I don't care for it, but we need to bring back some kind of season mode that shortens the season. I, in particular, don't care about it. Understandably, they have added the custom game entry conditions, which I think is actually pretty great. I would take this to the next level. I can probably discuss that at a later point in time. But again, a shorter season, you can shorten the season by just adjusting a lot of these things. And the good thing is it'll even tell you on an estimate how many of these games you'd actually run into. I have mine set where I can jump into any game so long as it is about medium situational importance. So sometimes I'll get jump into a game where it is the first inning. Other times I'll jump into it where it's the 7th inning. It just kind of depends on how things go. When you jump into it, once you've gotten through the inning, for the most part, unless it is a player highlight moment, you basically can keep simulating until you end up in another game entry situation that fits whatever you want that to be. Some of us actually want to play through a season just shortened. That's all. There's not a whole lot to it. Some people want to have, I don't know, 50 game season or 70 game season. Just let us customize it some kind of way. And there should be a way to make it work where the schedule isn't too crazy, where as it is currently, as far as the current scheduling algorithm, play most of your divisional opponents about 13 times. You will play teams in the other 2 divisions, which is cool. It's fine. I've never had an issue with that. Interleague is probably the one part that'll get jacked up, just because some of the series are usually played in certain times of the year. You want those rivalries to stay intact, probably better than they do in college football 25, which is an absolute cluster in terms of scheduling. Yeah, make sure you figure that out first, MLB The Show, before you ever introduce this kind of thing as far as shortening the seasons, or you can literally have it like you do in much maligned custom leagues. I gotta say, this is what a terrible replacement for online franchise. Why in the hell did you think this was a good idea? I do not know. I get that online leagues back in MLB The Show 17 on back just weren't working that well. I don't remember it because there was a 3-year hiatus in which I did not play this game. I blame my undergrad degree for all that. In custom leagues, which I'm pretty damn sure I'm not a part of. Nope, I'd have to actually search for one. You can actually create the scheduling. Now, it's a little different where essentially you can just pick any one of your opponents that you gotta play and just go play it. In a shortened season, you could probably get away with doing some of that, where you'd end up playing games essentially not in any particular order. You're more so playing them as you see fit. It's more of an invitation. You'd end up with obviously more days off unless you really condense the season, kind of like how we did in 2020, which I'm a little disappointed that MLB The Show didn't bring. Now, that was definitely a marathon sprint of about 2.5 months of 60 games, just balls to the wall. Maybe just have it just like that. You can set when you want the season to start and when to end. Honestly, I would probably pick something along the lines of the summer, because the ball tends to fly, as they say, and it would just be something dope. You'd get a lot more home runs. I'd probably run it from about Memorial Day through, I don't know, September, and you would have this season and you play through it and be a marathon. Sure, you can still have the same roster in terms of limits. You know, you need at least, I believe, 9 pitchers. You need at least 9 pitchers. You need at least, I think, 10 or 11 position players. I forget how many, because I've never had a position player issue. Pitchers are always an issue. Guys get hurt and stuff like that. But if you like any of these ideas, please let me know. If you have any suggestions for the podcast, please let me know down in the comment section. Or if you're listening to this audio form, find my YouTube channel. Link is always down in the show notes and or description. Holla at y'all later. Peace out.